What's up, everybody? I'm John Bush, and welcome to another episode of The Hot Seat. And today we're here with Mark Rowan, board member of the Penn-Ohio SCTE. Mark, how you doing this morning?
I am awesome. How are you, John?
Oh, I can't complain. We're starting to get some fall weather here in Indianapolis. So it's beautiful. Whereabouts are you from, Mark?
Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area.
Okay. Born and raised?
Born and raised. My family moved around a little bit. We lived in the Cleveland area for a while I was growing up, but Pittsburgh and northwestern Pennsylvania, up near Meadville, Lake Erie, south of Lake Erie.
Okay. Yeah, I got family from Erie, so beautiful place. So I have to ask you the question. Normally I wait till the end, but are you a Steelers fan?
I am a Steelers fan, although not as rabid as I once was.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, we don't here in Indianapolis. We have a thing against the Steelers. So Steelers
yes, I grew up during the dynasty years with the Steelers, and my dad and uncle had season tickets, and so I got a few opportunities to go during the Terry Bradshaw era.
Oh, that's awesome! I bet you had some fun too, waving the terrible towels.
Oh yeah, I've got my own terrible towel collection.
Yeah, that is excellent. So Mark, besides football, why don't you give me maybe a little bit of background? Married with kids, maybe a couple of your hobbies, things that you like to do. So, how long you been married, kids, etc.
Okay, so I am married. I've been married for coming up on 44 years in November. I have 3 children. I have 6 grandchildren. I'm double checking my math, but yeah, 6 grandchildren. One of them is a great grandchild. So awesome. You know what? I have to double check that now, because if this comes out later, I might never live it down. So I've got 1 from my oldest, 3 from, and so actually it's 7. I have 7 grandchildren with the great grandchild.
Oh, that's great. Even more.
Yeah.
No, that is excellent. So, obviously, and you're still in the Pittsburgh area, right?
I am in the Pittsburgh area currently. Yes, I've been back in Pittsburgh for coming up on 20 years.
Okay. And so in your time there in Pittsburgh, or the surrounding area, if you will, what types of things do you find yourself liking to do when you're not doing things at your job or at the chapter?
So I love spending time with my family, children. My wife and I will just go off for the weekend and do a little short travel. We have a small camp in Somerset County, and we also have a property on the lake in Somerset County, and we like to spend time at both.
Wow. Oh, that must be beautiful. Do you do any fishing while you're out there by chance?
No fishing, a lot of boating.
Okay.
Take the kids out and go tubing and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good memories too. I'm sure they'll always remember it, and they love those times going out to work. Who doesn't?
Yes.
No, that's great. So as far as let's get into your career for just a few moments, if we can. As far as telecommunications and your background, why don't you give us just an overview of your background and kind of where you started to getting where you are today?
Okay, so 1985, I was unemployed, looking for work. My wife, Linda, found an ad in the newspaper for cable TV installers. And so I went to an interview with Fred Baker, Baker Installations, and took that position. In order to take the position, we were living in Pittsburgh at the time. To take the position, I had to relocate to the Rockville, Maryland area to work in a system there in Rockville, Maryland. And so that was a big adventure for us. That was the start of a coming up on 40-year career in telecommunications. All of it pretty much with Baker Installations. So it's been a great opportunity for me. And I started out as an installer, running drops and hooking up customer equipment. A lot different than what it is today. There was nothing digital at that time. It was all analog. But Worked my way up, to a senior technician and supervisor positions, running various projects. Worked in a lot of systems all over Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and finally became a manager, regional manager, and I'm a general manager now for pretty much Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio.
Wow. Oh, that's great. So you've got to see the field, you've got to see the management part as well. So you can blend those things in together pretty well, I would imagine.
I think, that's one of the benefits of starting at the bottom is, and it's, as long as you don't forget where you started, it gives you a lot of perspective as you move your way up through an organization. And another benefit for me as a contractor, I got to work with a lot of different MSOs. So I got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
No, that's great though, because all that's experience, right? And you get to take those experiences with you wherever you go, from the good, the bad, and like you said, the ugly.
Yes, sir.
No, that's
Baker,
go ahead.
I said Baker Installations was we focused on solving problems for our client base, and I think we've done a good job with that over the years. And some clients, although the names have changed over the years with buyouts and whatnot, but we've got long-term relationships throughout the industry.
Yeah, no, I know Baker's been around for quite a while. Since I started my career, I've known of them. I've heard of them. I didn't cover the account, but as far as your career there, like you said, you were installation, and then I think you said senior installation tech, and kind of moving your way up the ranks. Did you ever do any of the line maintenance work as well?
Line maintenance was not one of our functions for the most part. We did mostly installations in my early career. We have branched into construction, fiber and aerial and underground construction, over the years. But initially, it was all pretty much residential installation work.
Okay. And so I imagine you've been in and out of a lot of homes. What's one of the more interesting installations or things you've seen maybe doing a job?
I can't tell you about some of the most interesting ones. You would be amazed how some people live. But it's one of the things I'll tell you a quick story. When my wife was much younger, we had young children in the house, and I'd come home and the house would be a little bit messy. And she would apologize to me about having a messy house. And I would tell her, Linda, you don't know what a messy house is, because some of the places I have been in, you would not believe. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not saying this about anybody's house, but we used to take apart the set-top box converters, and they would be sitting in people's houses for a long time, and you couldn't imagine, I'm sure you could, the amount of like cockroaches or spiders or just, dog and cat hair that just come pouring out of these devices. And it's like, yeah, to your point, our house is a little messy. We're okay. We're good.
Yeah, we carried plastic bags with us when we take a set-top box out of a house, tie it up in the bag so you didn't bring anything home with you.
Yeah, that's when it's like it's a little scary, but to each is their own, I guess. So yeah, that's interesting. You've got to see that. So have you had? I guess I would ask from the perspective of getting to work with other people and technicians and management alike. What do you think in your career has been one of the most valuable lessons you've learned from working with people, other individuals, whether it be tech or management or peers for that matter?
I think the biggest thing I've learned over the years is to try and reverse the situation a little bit, put myself in the shoes of the other person, whether it's the customer in an in-home installation, or whether it's a trainee when I was doing training for new technicians, to put myself in the other shoes a little bit so that I can look at it from their perspective and then try and tailor what I'm trying to deliver, whether it's an installation or a training piece, try and tailor it to that individual.
Oh, that's great. So really working with people and trying to see how they feel, and so you can better, basically help them at that point. Like you said, tailor it to them, right?
Right, because if you're not satisfying the customer, you can do a perfect install, but if you don't identify what that customer's needs are and fill that last little piece, it's a fail.
And in today's age, with I'd say with like human networking in general, so not networks as me and it, like our network's down or whatever, but human networking more for a moment. What would you say over your career, the importance of networking with other individuals, whether, like as an example through Penn-Ohio, there's people at various different, companies. What would you say to an aspiring, individual trying to come up in telecommunications for their network about, maybe the importance of it for what you've seen through your career?
Yeah, well, networks are very important because, we can leverage not only the knowledge of others in our network, but the resources of others in our network. And it's not a one-sided thing either. It's a give and take. It's a true relationship. I help you, you help me. And I don't know, some people look at that a little bit cynical in some ways, but it's really not. It's the whole human experience is about relationships and working together and making life better for each other and our client bases. So
yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
it's very important.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I always like to ask that question just as FYI, because I think it's good when you have the experience that you have and people get to hear that, so they know that, hey, your network is very valuable to you and to others as well.
Sure.
So Mark, something of curiosity is, we've kind of talked about a little bit about the installation, some of the things you've seen there, give us some tips on networking in general. What would you say for somebody looking to gain knowledge? So kind of maybe shifting gears just a little bit over to the chapter, in telecommunications as a whole, what do you think is one of the most interesting things you've noted about telecommunications and let's say the SCTE in general, like what they offer, what they bring to the table?
Well, the SCTE so we used SCTE broadband premise certifications as our kind of our basic training piece and certification piece for years at Baker Installations. We don't do as much of that work now as we did in the past, but the knowledge base of the SCTE and the industry in general is so open. Everybody is willing to share, and that's something that I think has been really wonderful in our industry, because it's been a growth industry, pretty much since I started 40 years ago. It's been a growth industry, and it's another quick story. When I got my first job with Baker Installations, I told my grandfather about it, and he said to me, why do you want to do that? Sooner or later, everybody's going to be hooked up and you'll be out of a job. Well, here I am 40 years later, everybody's hooked up one way or another, but it's constantly improving, constantly upgrading, constantly evolving. And so it's been a great industry. And one of the reasons is because everybody's so open and they share the knowledge. You partner up with people. There's just so many opportunities. It's been awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I agree with you. I think that's one of the number one things is that, people, you can ask anybody questions, and I can't think of any time somebody said no or kind of brushed me off. They're always very helpful. In fact, sometimes a little too helpful. The answer was 10 minutes and it ended up being 2 hours, but it was a great conversation,
There you go.
Yeah. No, that's great. So I understand from the Penn-Ohio, from the SCTE portion, that at the show this year, we did something pretty good with some, we'll say, some certifications, and some a gentleman coming out of high school received his certification. Do you want to touch or maybe elaborate on that just a little bit for our viewers?
So we had our first. So Royd and Mike are very involved in the Forbes Road Tech School program, and they rolled the certification program into that. And so we had our first graduate this year, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. But he attended the he attended the vendor show, received an award in his certification there, and he's also a member of the chapter now. So that's exciting stuff. And I think some people don't understand the opportunities that are available in this industry. But just like myself, once you get a foot in the door, there are so many different paths you can pursue, educational to improve, get into management and things like that, or you can follow a technical path if you enjoy that type of thing. There's just so much available. It's just a wonderful organization.
Yeah, and like you said, there's so much there. I mean, the company's a company. You got financing, you got support, you've got the technical side, like you said, you got engineering, construction. I mean, whatever you basically went for, there is a job for you in telecommunication. And to further something you said, which I think was really good, is that, you had mentioned 40 years ago, your grandpa said, eventually everybody's going to be hooked up. But as we continue to go, things are only getting faster. The demand is only asking for more. I want more and more and more speeds. And I see, like you were saying, I see nothing but growth in the future of telecommunications, just because the evolution of content, for that matter.
Right. And it's really become the backbone of our nation, of the world. Communications, everything that we're doing, even this conversation that we're having now, right, is over the communications network. And the businesses, when we went through COVID, the spike that we saw from that, just to keep everybody hooked up so that everybody could, keep the lights on, keep the doors open on the businesses, working from home and schooling from home. It was all done over the networks that have been built. And it's really amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, I know COVID really taxed or pressed on the network, but at the same time, it showed the value of telecommunications. Like, if we didn't have this ability to communicate, like you said, how are we doing what we're doing today? But in a pandemic like that, people were working from home, keeping bread, food on the table via our industry, which is a great thing to think about. So
exactly.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. So during the COVID, let's say the COVID era, knock on wood, that never comes back, of course. What do you think was during COVID? Because a lot of people were affected by it, obviously. What do you think was one of the most valuable lessons that you have personally learned during the COVID? Let's say from a professional aspect. What did you see, or what did you feel from the work aspect?
I think it was. Probably comes back to all the collaboration. I guess tying back to what we talked about a little earlier on, but everybody just being open to think about, okay, how are we going to approach this now, right? We can't bring everybody into the office to do these various things. So how do we continue to keep this network up and running for everything that it needs to be up and running for, and do it in a totally different way. And it actually kind of highlights the versatility that was built into the communications industry that maybe we didn't even realize at the time. But I think we pretty much pulled it off without a hitch. Everybody kept on, doing what they needed to do. Yeah, you didn't all dispatch from a single location or come together and have these big meetings that you had in the past, but you did it remotely. You communicated with various technologies. Some of them really came out of that era, like these Zoom calls.
Yeah.
There was one good thing that came out of COVID, or the period that we were in the pandemic, and that was the traffic was so much lighter. I was able to drive around and get to where I needed to go without any problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, 100%. Yeah, not only the traffic, but one thing I learned too is that, with the masks and people sanitizing all the time, I think everybody was a lot cleaner than when you get on an airplane, I typically would sanitize. So you don't know how often they clean those, but just in general, everybody was always, trying to make sure they're not coughing or sneezing. And that's kind of carried over today as well, which I like, because there's nothing worse than being stuck in a murky, boardroom and people are coughing and sneezing, the air gets stale. You're like, oh yeah, you don't want that, right?
I don't need that.
Yeah, no, that's excellent, Mark. So is the SCTE, so the Penn-Ohio, our chapter here, just curious, what is, if you were to put your thumb on and say, yeah, we're definitely looking forward to doing that, what is some of the goals as a board member you think that in your mind are most important, some of the things that you'd like to see going forward from the chapter?
So I think the number one thing is, I'm really, I play a very small role in this, but the way that we're pushing the content out into YouTube and social media to where it's accessible to everyone is a really great thing. And for me, the chapter started when I was fairly young in the industry. There were people with Baker Installations in the past. Some names some people might remember, but Mary Ann McLean and Sam Colletts and Dave Colletts and these guys were instrumental in helping to get the chapter started. So now at this point, I'm just in a support role. I'm happy to be able to do that as the treasurer for the past 2 years, and who knows what comes next. But pushing that content out into a situation where people can access it without having to come to meetings that would take up a whole day or a half a day, and still get the training and the learning and the exposure to various topics that you would used to take a lot more time and effort. I think that's a great thing that our chapter's doing.
Yeah, and definitely bringing in the vendor partners to leverage their expertise as well, and bringing them in to help do the training, equipment, and things like that is a huge bonus, because then you're working directly with an expert, such as let's use Mike and Royd, and then you've also got the manufacturer as well of the equipment to give the best practices, which I think is just grand, and then giving that to people for free, giving that knowledge out to somebody in Brazil or wherever to be able to watch is I think a beautiful way of sharing knowledge. Furthers the telecommunications that we've known and talked about here.
Right. I mean, we're in the Penn-Ohio chapter, but that, again, tying back to the network that we all work on, because of the way this content is being exposed to the world, anybody can access it. You can search for it from anywhere in the world and come up with the content that's being produced right here in the Penn-Ohio chapter.
Yep. Did you think, going back, maybe 30 years or so, the evolution of telecommunications would lead us to where we are today?
No. I really thought about, when I got involved in the industry, and it was really primarily for, entertainment purposes. It was cable TV, and it was, far fewer channels than what we are exposed to today. The set-top boxes, the old slide boxes and different things, you were lucky if you had 30 channels on some of the systems. And so to think about that evolving to the point where then we, offering telephony and high-speed data, and now at this point it's more about the pipeline, more about the data stream than anything else, because through that data stream you can get it all. And so, yeah, I would love to say I was a visionary and would have known, but if I was a visionary and would have known where it was going, I would have made a lot more money than I did, because I would have invested in a couple key places.
Yeah, you'd be having that fruity drink in the Bahamas right about now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Mark. So still on the SCTE topic here, the Penn-Ohio chapter. as far as your current role, you said you're in more of a support role, but what do you currently do for the chapter?
I am the current treasurer, so I'm monitoring the finances, submitting reports, and trying to tell Mike and Roy not to spend so much money.
Imagine that's hard to do, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, they got minds of their own. But from a board perspective, now you've been on. I think you said you've been on the board for right about 3 years, a little over 3 years now. Is that correct?
Yes, I started as an associate for 1 year, and then our current treasurer at that time was retiring, and so I got elected as treasurer and moved into the full board.
Yeah. And one of the things I don't know if a lot of the viewers or folks may know, but the SCTE is an organization, so it's a .org, so it's non for profit. So as well as the people like yourself that help out on the board, there's no pay there, is there? It's just something you're doing as as help, as basically kind of like a donation of your time as well, right?
It's all volunteer organization at the chapter level, and so. Yes, there is some time involved, but it's also, it's part of that networking that you talked about earlier. It's an opportunity to get together and touch base with different people and learn from each other and work together towards a goal. I mean, we want to build the communications industry and help the younger generation come up through the way we did. So. It's an opportunity. It's a little bit of a give back, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and as you mentioned, something great that the chapter's doing is what we're doing with the schools, right? I mean, that's fantastic, being able to come right out and have a certification and go into telecommunications, which kind of furthers that as well. So.
And it's an opportunity. Again, we touched on it a little bit, but for the young people, college is outrageously expensive these days. And so if you could come out with a certification out of, high school and get an entry-level job, a lot of these companies will help pay for your education, as you work your way up through, and you can build a heck of a career and not start out, $200,000 in debt, yeah. Which is a big advantage.
Oh yeah. Like you mentioned, college is extremely expensive, and not telling anybody not to go to college. If that's your dream, absolutely go. But the trade skill jobs are extremely beneficial to society, and frankly, they pay very, very well, right?
Yes, they do. And again, I'm not saying don't go to college. I'm saying there's ways for you to go to college and maybe have somebody else pay for it.
Yeah, that's the key, right? You can always have somebody else flip the bill. That's a good good thing, technology, and as well as banking all that knowledge, right? So, yeah, that's great. So, Mark, a couple rapid fire questions at you here, just real quick. I like to hit people with these, and just first response, whatever comes to mind. Now, you already told me you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so that's probably your favorite football team, I would imagine. What is the team that you despise? What's the one that you don't like the least?
The Cleveland Browns, of course.
Oh, don't tell that to Mike or Roy. Insert Mike and Roy frowny faces right here staring at you. No, that's
Baltimore comes in a close second, though.
Yeah. No, that's great. Favorite car brand?
Favorite car brand? I am a Ford guy. I've got, I've had a number of Ford F-150s throughout the years. I've got a Mustang. That's actually my wife's Mustang, but she lets me drive it sometimes.
Oh, that's good. Is it a 5-liter?
No, it's an EcoBoost. Oh. I had a 4.6 liter 2006 back in the day, but this one's an EcoBoost. It's pretty snappy though.
Man, those EcoBoosts, I tell you what, people be modifying them and stuff too. Those are one of the faster cars. Frankly, they're quick. So, since we're on the car topic, just one second, what do you feel about electric and where the electric is come from or is going?
So, My current Ford F-150 is a Power Boost, so it's a hybrid, and it's got a lot of torque, which is helped by the electric engine that's in the, or electric motor that's in the transmission. I'm not a big fan of all electric, at least not at this point, because the infrastructure is not there. But I could see it, coming down the line. I don't want to be forced into it, but I am transitioning since I am in a hybrid now.
I drive a Prius, man. Don't tell anybody. Oh, but like you said, the hybrids are pretty cool, man. They'll offer up that torque, and gas mileage is a heck of a lot better. If you had to charge your car, like you said, the grid can't handle everybody on electric, but if you have to charge your car, I mean, it's like $8 or $9 for 300 miles, which is pretty interesting to look at.
Yeah, that's a good opportunity there for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so if you had a book that you'd tell an aspiring, the younger generation to read, what book would that be?
Wow.
Or career orientation, maybe, or family for that matter, whatever you recommend.
Family orientation. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's by Dale Carnegie. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I took a leadership course years ago, and that book was the textbook, so to speak, for the course. And the principles that are in that book will help you throughout your life.
You guys heard it from the man. Check it out. Link to that book below in the description, so you guys can pick yourselves up a copy of that and take a read at it. So one more quick one here from the quick shot is, what is your favorite meal?
My favorite meal, steak.
Steak and taters?
Steak and potatoes. I'm a carnivore.
I like your style, sir. You too. All right, no, this is great. So maybe one more a quick one. If you let's see, if you want to, let me cut this part out. Let me think of what I wanted to ask you is, I want to ask you really to leave some folks with some knowledge, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to just drop the question. If you were to leave folks with one bit of a life advice, what would that be? Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Piece of advice to go through life with. Yeah, let me word this properly. 3, 2. So kind of wrapping up here, Mark, I'd like to see if you could maybe drop a piece of advice to our viewers or to anybody looking to get into the workforce, even if it's not maybe telecommunications directly, but what is one strong piece of advice you could give them as they start to build their career?
So I think it would focus around the word integrity. So we have a little saying, we call them credibility habits or integrity habits at Baker Installations, but it's basically show up on time, do what you say, finish what you start, and say please and thank you. And it really just talks about how to build credibility with people. Excuse me. How to build credibility with people, and how to be somebody that others can rely on and trust. And if you can do that, I think it makes your life and the lives of others more impactful.
Today's video is sponsored by PPC, Innovative Connectivity Solutions for Broadband and Wireless Networks. For more information, visit them at ppc-online.com.